Hello students, a very good morning. So students, in last class we were discussing about the topic of the chapters, that is magnetism and matter. So in magnetism and matter we are revising exactly our chapter, and in revision we have revised up to now the magnetism topic, where the properties of magnet, behavior of magnet, how much strength of magnetic field it will produce, that we have all revised. So here today we will further do the discussion in the case of magnetic material only, because in magnetic material up to the topic of the classification of magnetic material we have discussed, like magnetic materials are of three types. First is diamagnetic material, second is paramagnetic material, and third one is ferromagnetic material. So all these three we have discussed, and later susceptibility, permeability, the topics or the properties of the material that classifies their magnetic behavior, that we have discussed also. So today in magnetic material, first we will now discuss the hysteresis loop. After that, on the basis of hysteresis loop, we will discuss the properties of electromagnet, permanent magnet, and the course that we are making for the solenoid or other transformers like that. So in the case of hysteresis loop, we are first making or we are just sketching a graph between magnetizing field H and magnetic induction that is produced inside the magnetic material. And here, as we know, in ferromagnetic material, the magnetic field, whenever we are applying, the magnetization strength is very great. They are strongly supporting the magnetic field. That's why lot of domains and the dipoles, they are aligned along the magnetic field. So that's why the hysteresis loop we are drawing is for the ferromagnetic materials only. Second one, before sketching any graph, before applying any magnetizing field to the ferromagnetic material, whatever the sample we are taking, we always check the that's history of that sample paper, because if that sample of ferromagnetic material, if it was felt before that the magnetizing field, and that time it will show some different hysteresis loop that it can show in a while it is fresh sample or demagnetized sample. So always you have to take the sample to do experiment or to plot the graph between B and H, the fresh sample or unmagnetized sample. So now if we have taken one unmagnetized sample that is not magnetized, that dipole are aligned randomly, that's why the net dipole moment is 0. There is no magnetic behavior contained in that material. But now when we start to apply the magnetizing field on that material, then due to the application of magnetizing field, the domains or the magnetic dipoles starts to align along the field, and due to that one, the magnetic induction that starts to increase inside the material. So if we will plot the graph now, the graph will show the behavior of the magnetic induction due to application of magnetizing field. So whenever we will take demagnetized sample, then that time it will have the 0 value of magnetic induction for the 0 value of the application of magnetizing field. So on this one we have taken magnetizing field, on y-axis we have taken now magnetic field. Now we start to increase the magnetizing field, and we are seeing continually there is increment in magnetic induction. So this magnetic induction will increase up to the extent whenever all the dipoles or domain will align along the magnetic field. So whenever all domain will along the magnetic field, and that time a saturation value of magnetic induction will occur, that will be the maximum possible magnetic induction. So suppose from O to A, this value starts to increase for this one. This is point A. Now this point is it is showing the saturation value of magnetic induction. Now after this one, the graph that will show a different behavior whenever we will start to remove this magnetizing field. So if we will start to now decrease the magnetizing field, and we will do at 0 means we will remove the magnetizing field, then we will see a different behavior in ferromagnetic material. It is following this kind of graph. Now it is not coming back from A to O, but it is going from A to B. So while going from A to B, you can see even on the removal of magnetizing field, it has some property of magnetic induction that is retained in the magnetizing sample. So that's why we had to always check the magnetizing sample that we are using because it has some retentivity or not, it has contained some induction inside it or not. So the sample you have to take, that should be demagnetized, but here you can see the sample is magnetized permanently even we have removed the magnetizing field. So this behavior of the sample is known as, or ferromagnetic material is known as retentive behavior, and we are calling this phenomena or property as the retentivity property. So retentivity property is the to retain the magnetic field inside the magnetic sample is known as magnetic retentivity. Now after this, if we have to demagnetize our sample again, we want a fresh sample, we want a demagnetized sample, then for that one we have to apply the magnetic field or magnetizing field in opposite direction. Now if we will start to apply the field in opposite direction, then that time the dipole that were aligned along the suppose in this direction they are aligned, then they will start to move again along the direction of the field, and due to that one they will start to be demagnetized, and ultimately due to the application of magnetizing field in reverse direction, in this direction if we will start to apply the field, then this value of the sample, this will start to decrease and it will become 0 for some kind here reverse value of the magnetizing field. So this graph from B to C, here this C we can see, this is now OC is the magnetizing field that is needed to remove the retentive behavior of the sample. So this OC is known as corrosive property of the material, or we are calling it corrosivity. Now, so these are two very important properties, retentive property and corrosive property. Retentive property means how much magnetization the sample has retained, and corrosive property means how much magnetic field we have to apply to remove that magnetization that it has retained. Now after this, if we will start to again apply the magnetic field in the same direction, in opposite direction, reverse direction, then that time again all the dipole will start to align in opposite direction. So due to that one, again as all dipole will align, then that time it will again starts to increase and it will go to its saturation value just like this one. And again if we will start to decrease the field, it will again follow this kind of graph and it will go from D to E, and again if we will start to increase it in positive direction, so its sample will show this kind of loop here. So this loop you are seeing, that is from A, B, C, D, E, A, that is known as now hysteresis loop. We are calling it hysteresis curve, that is plotted between magnetizing field and magnetic induction. Now this is very important curve for production of the ferromagnetic material, which material is good, which material is bad, or which kind of material we can use for the different purpose. Now our purpose is here to construct a magnet. First of all, like we can construct permanent magnet and we can construct electromagnet. So first let's see the properties of permanent magnet and what kind of behavior of the material we needed for this one. So first type of is permanent magnet. So permanent magnets means, by name it is clear, the magnets that will retain their magnetic behavior for the long time. We can use any time them. They should have the property of magnetic induction always present. So in this case it means that even the magnetizing field, we are not applying any kind of field, is not present, but the material has property of the magnetization of magnetic field inside it. So it means it has retentive property already. So the permanent magnet, the first property that it should have, this should be high retentive. Means we can make permanent magnets of such kind of material that have high retentive property. So the first property is high retentivity. The second property to construct the permanent magnet, that is high permeability. So permeability, you know, the property of material that predict that whether the magnetic field can penetrate inside, that means magnetization can be induces there or not in the material. So as magnetization will induces in the material, then easily that material can be magnetized and that can retain the magnetic field. So permeability should be so high for these kind of materials or these kind of magnets. Now the third property, the corrosivity property. So corrosivity property means even if we will suppose low corrosive material we have, then it means that we need only very small field to remove the magnetization. So permanent magnets are those which magnetic field should be retained even after a long time, after even a lot of forces are present, other magnets are present. Also you know on the earth already earth magnetism is present. So our magnet is also keeping in other magnetic field, or some kind of stray magnetic field is also present. So due to all that, its magnetic field, magnetic induction, that should not be vanishes. So for that we need a material that should have high corrosivity. It should needed a high magnetizing field to remove its magnetization behavior. So the third property for the permanent magnets that we needed, this is high corrosive. High corrosivity. So these are now the three very important properties that we are using to construct the permanent magnets, and they are very stable magnets. For this one that we are using this that should have some high retentive, high corrosive property, and that's why steel we are using to construct it. Now the next one, after this one, the permanent magnets, after this let's see the second type of magnets that we are using, and that is used to produce very high magnetic field. Because permanent magnets strength is not that much that we are needed even to lift a very heavy load. For that one we needed a very strong magnet, like in cranes we are using this one, in lab industries, in robotics industries, everywhere we are using that. So the, that kind of magnets we are using, that is electromagnet. So let's see what is now electromagnet. So electromagnets, by name it is the magnets that are working by the electric field. So it means now the magnetizing field that we are using here to magnetize the sample, that is electric field. So this is the sample that should be behave like the magnet until we are using electric field. So means here the material we are needed on which if we will apply the electric field, that should behave as the magnet. But whenever we will remove the electric field, that's magnetization should be zero. That should not be magnetized. Means now as whenever we will remove the magnetic field, its magnetization should be zero. Means this behavior, this property should be low. Because if it will be high, then we will need a high field again to remove the magnetization, and here we need not any kind of retentive behavior for the construction of electromagnet. Only we need such kind of material in which we can produce magnetization by the application of field, but we don't need any kind of retained behavior of the or any type of magnetization that should be retained in the field. Means the retentive property and corrosive property both should be low to construct this type of magnet. So we know here to construct electromagnet, the first property, that is low retentivity, and the second one, that is low corrosivity. Now the third one, as here such kind of materials we are needed that should behave like the greater or very strong magnets whenever we will apply the electric field. So for that kind we need a high permeable material in which easily magnetization can be produced. So besides these two properties, next property is needed, that should be high permeability. So due to this one, to construct electromagnets we are using soft iron, because soft iron, if you will plot the hysteresis loop for that, that has very narrow hysteresis loop, and OC and OB that are very small for soft iron. So we are constructing electromagnets by that one. Now the third things after the discussion on that, that is cores of transformers or solenoid. So let's see what should be the properties to construct the cores that we are using. So to construct the core of transformer, as it is working on the principle of mutual induction, so or the solenoid on which we are winding the wires, that is carrying current and magnetic field is producing. So magnetic field as is producing, that time we need a material through which easily magnetic field can be produced. Means again we need a high permeable material in this construction. So the first property that we have needed, that is high permeable material. Now the second property, these types of cores that should not have to be the property to retain the magnetic field, because it should produce magnetic field whenever the current will flow through that one. So that's why they should have low retentive and low cohesive behavior. Again, the soft irons are very helpful to construct the cores of the transformers and solenoid also. So these are now the magnetic materials. Now one more thing in hysteresis loop, that is the curve between or the area between this hysteresis curve. You can see now this area. The area that it is covering, this area is showing the energy lost while we are applying the magnetizing field. So it is showing simple how much energy is lost by application of magnetizing field and in magnetization process. So greater will be the area of the curve, greater will be the loss in the energy whenever we will apply the magnetizing field. So we will need a very high amount of energy if its hysteresis curve is very broad. So this is predicting now how much energy we are needed here for this kind of situation. So students, I think this is now clear. We have revised our chapter number 5 also. So in chapter number 5 we had topics magnetic material, magnetism, Earth's magnetism, all we have discussed. So this is I think completely clear. So let's now discuss as we have time still, we will discuss the next chapter, we will revise that, and some of the topics first of all today we will just revise. So let's revise now our chapter 6 here. So this is electromagnetic induction. So what is now the electromagnetic induction? In this chapter, first of all, as if we will divide the chapter, very few topics are here, but that are very important and broad topics. Like the first topic is what is electromagnetic induction, and what kind of law that tells us about the electromagnetic induction, and later what are the method of the production of electricity. Fourth, after this one, self-inductance, mutual induction property, and application of this one. You can discuss here also, or we can discuss in AC chapter like AC generator and transformer. Both we can discuss here or also in AC chapter. So we will discuss in AC chapter that one. So here in this chapter, first of all, what is electromagnetic induction? Electromagnetic means the production of electricity using magnetic field by the property of induction. Means magnetic field can induce electric field. This is known as electromagnetic induction, and we are understanding electromagnetic induction by one law, that is Faraday law of electromagnetic induction. This is very important law that is needed to understand electromagnetic induction. So the first thing about the Faraday law of electromagnetic induction, there are two laws. The first law, that is giving us the magnitude of induced EMF. So here this law is saying whenever there is change in magnetic flux linked with any coil, then that time induced EMF that will be produced, and if the coil has some resistance, it has closed circuit, then that time a current will produce through it. So the magnitude of induced EMF that is given by E is equal to d pi by dt. Means it is simple directly proportional to the rate of change of flux through any coil. So whenever through any coil the flux will change, then that time induced EMF will generate there. And now you can see how can this flux will change. So as magnetic flux, by the formula it is given by NBA cos of theta. So this is our formula where N is number of turns in coil, B is magnetic field, C A is area of the coil, theta is orientation of the coil with respect to magnetic field. So whenever this all four quantities will change, or any other quantity that can change these four quantities, due to that all we can produce electricity easily. So the first one here you can see, if a number of turns that will start then due to increment in the number of turns, that will contain more flux, and due to the contents of more flux will change and it will produce electromagnetic field or induced EMF, simple. Now the second one, magnetic field. So whenever magnetic field will change, or due to the movement of magnet or movement of coil, or due to the change of the magnets also, due to all that, if magnetic field will change, then due to that here flux will change. So here one more thing, it is not necessary that flux should always, the things should be increased. Whether they are increasing or decreasing, they will change the flux. Only that thing we needed. We don't needed always increment in the flux. Flux can be decreased also, but it should only be changed. So whenever it will change, it will produce induced EMF. Only the direction will change whenever it will increase or decrease. The third factor that can change the value of induced EMF, that is area of the coil. So if area of the coil that will start to change, then that will change also the value of induced EMF. Suppose if we will start to rotate the coil, means orientation if we will start to change, then that time also induced EMF will produce. And so there you can see the basically 4 methods are here to produce the magnetic electric field by using magnetic flux concept. So it is depending on the magnetic flux change completely. Now after this one, how can we understand the direction in which this induced EMF will produce? So the direction is given by the Faraday's second law of electromagnetism, and that is electromagnetic induction, and that is also known as Lenz law. So Lenz law is giving us the direction of the induced EMF. So according to this law, it is saying the produced induced EMF is always in such a manner so that it can oppose its own cause. So its cause is change in flux, so it always opposing the change in flux. So always it has direction in opposite direction to the change in flux, and this law is also the conservation of energy, because whenever it will not have opposite nature, then it will show the violation of the conservation of energy. So to conserve it, it should have always opposite direction, that is always needed here. So this is now all of the Faraday law of electromagnetic induction. So first topic of this chapter, electromagnetic induction, that we have discussed. Now one by one we will see the method of the production of electricity from the change in magnetic flux. The first method, one method we will discuss today. Rest of the methods we will discuss in next class. So first method that is possible here, pi is equal to NBA cos of theta. So we will start to discuss this B. So magnetic field, or if we will start to change it. So magnetic field can be changed by number of methods. The first method that was proposed by even Faraday and Ampere's independently at different places, that was one was moving the magnet towards the coil. So due to movement of magnet towards the coil, the magnetic flux, suppose this is a coil, this is now magnet, so this is north-south direction. So whenever this magnet will move towards the coil, then that time the magnetic field lines that will cross through this magnetic flux, that will change, and due to that one the flux will change and current will be produced. Now current will have direction in such a way it can reduce this movement of the magnet. For that case, this end of the coil that we have starting to behave as north pole, and it will start to behave as south pole. So we know the current is flowing from north to south, so we can just show the direction of the current in such a manner from here to here. And similarly, if it will go away from this one, then for that case the coil will induce a current in opposite direction, so that it can just attract this magnet towards it to oppose any kind of change in flux through it. This was the first method. Second method, you can keep magnet stationary, you can move coil. So if you will move coil, or if you will keep means towards the magnet or away the magnet, the same property that is proposing here, that will again will be there, and due to that one the electricity will develop. The third one is possible if you will start to move both magnet and coil towards each other, away to each other. But if you will move them in the same direction, then that time relative orientation will not change, and that time no electricity will produce. But whenever we will take them away or closer to them, then that time electricity will produce. So students, today I think the things that we have revised, this is completely clear. So let's end our class here. In next class we will revise our this chapter. Thank you students.